Hi, my name is Kat Aragon, and I'm going to talk all about LimeLife by Alcone concealers today. So let me first go into the reasons why you would want different concealers. Now, one, you would want to look into concealer that actually matches your skin tone. So that way, if there's something that's a little bit harder to cover and our foundation isn't covering it, the concealer is going to be of a thicker pigmentation, and you can use like a little tap of it, it'll cover it right up, and then you can go over with foundation or use a concealer over your foundation. Another thing that people will do is get a color that will mix in with their foundation actually to help counteract anything. And three is that it helps with dark under eye circles. Again, you can use something that matches your skin for dark under eye circles. Me personally, and what I'm going to teach you here is I like to counteract colors. I don't want the pigment and the texture of the color to conceal it. I want the right color to offset those dark circles. So that way I use very little. And the last thing is, of course, highlighting and contouring. So some people will use some of our concealers to highlight the skin right in the cheek, on the high points of the face, to contour, to bring in the cheeks a little bit more. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. And of course, we cannot forget the even cooler thing about our concealers is that it can be doubled as a primer for our eyelids as well. So before you're putting on those new neutral shadows that we have out, you'll want to put a little dab of the concealer right over the lid, make sure it's really blended in and pressed down, and then you can go ahead and put your shadows on, and it'll help with the longevity of the shadows as well. Okay, so let's get started. How about concealer number 0? Let's start at the lightest one. So concealer 0, I've already went ahead and swatched right in here. It is very light, as you can tell. This is not something that I would necessarily wear for my skin tone. I would probably mix this in with something that I want to be a little bit lighter. Even as a highlighter, as much as this works as a highlighter for so many people, with my skin tone, it would look like a little bit too light. So I actually prefer to go with number 2 as a highlighter for myself, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So concealer 0 is gonna be perfect concealer for anybody ordering a porcelain foundation, anybody ordering ivory, and if you're wearing Gina beige, that can work as well. It will have a little bit more of a highlight effect versus matching your skin tone. So concealer 0 is going to be for your highlight for fair to medium skin tones, or it's going to be a good match for your ivory and porcelain girls. Okay, next up we have concealer number 1. And I think a lot of people misunderstand concealer number 1 just to be the next shade up. And actually concealer number 1 has a very different purpose. It's actually a little bit more of a yellow mustardy. Let's see if I can do this on camera. More of a yellow mustardy color, which is not obviously the next color up from that. So we use this as a corrective color. Now, when I mentioned that my skin tends to be very red, I have just the tiniest bit of foundation on, just a little bit. My skin tends to be very red in the winter because I don't have as much color, as much tan at that time. It starts to match up a little bit more evenly in the summer. But when that happens, I'm very light down on my chest and my neck area in the winter, and then I'm probably a little bit lighter than this on my face, and it's very red. And what I tend to do is I'll take my foundation brush and I'll take my foundation and I actually mix my foundation with this number 1 color right into it, and I don't have any foundation on here, and then I will mix the two on my face. As you can see, that knocks down that redness. And also because it's a little bit more pigmented than my foundation, it really helps to keep my foundation around all day long. But I'll just show you how that knocks down redness in the skin. So this is really great as a mixer. Great with somebody who has a sunburn or a wine stain that they want to try to hide. Great for, for more pink and red undertones. Okay, so I went ahead with number 1, the rest of it, and I went ahead and put it right in here and on my red chin and right here, just to give you an idea of how that can help balance out the redness in the skin. So again, I wouldn't use number 1 for under eyes. I wouldn't necessarily use it for anything other than color correction. And some people, believe it or not, actually myself included, in the winter, my neck is really like color number 1. It's really that olive undertone, mustardy green kind of color, which I was kind of shocked when I found that out. But it made sense as to why it made my foundation look a little bit better. So if you find that you're wearing a foundation, I don't care if it's Gina beige, if it's olive 1, if it's Shinto 1, Shinto 2, and it just feels a little bit too pink on your skin, a little bit too peachy, try adding a little bit of the number 1 concealer into it and see how that will help tone and neutralize that color. It actually helps save a lot of people from having to repurchase a new color. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about concealer number 2. So we have 0, 1, and this is so funny to do this backwards in the mirror here. But you can see how 2 is getting to be a little warmer, especially in comparison. Now you can see how green that number 1 is if you compare it. So really, if you're looking for steps in depth of color, you're gonna actually go from 0 to 2, not 0, 1, and 2. It'll be more realistic approach would be 0 and then 2 as the next darkest color. So number 2, I prefer to use as a highlighter for myself. Number 2 will be a great concealer for people who are Shinto 1, who are in that olive 1, Jenna beige. It's a little more yellow than what they are. As you can see, it's not really pinky. It's a little bit more, has a little more of a peachy yellow undertone, but it's still light enough that it'll work really nicely with those skin tones, even if they're in the olive 1 range. And what I like to do, let's see if I have my concealer brush here. Concealer brush number 8 right here. What I like to do with number 2 concealer is use it as a highlighter for myself. I'm actually Shinto 2 right now. So if I use, a lot of people will use number 2 concealer as an under eye cover, and they can, and there's no problem. But I will say that concealer number 2 does not have those pink salmon undertones, which helps to really counteract the blues. So it will cover, but it's going to cover because of the pigmentation in it, not because of the color of it. So for example, I'm going to do one eye with number 2. Let's do this eye with number 2 here. So I like to just use it as a little highlighter under my eyes as a concealer. You see how much that pops against the skin? Again, this won't pop as much if you're wearing Shinto 1. Or a lighter color like Jenna beige, but it will still give nice coverage. So you notice that I'm putting concealer right here at the inside of the nose right here, or right by the tear duct. That tends to be where the darkest part of our face is. So I like to bring some brightness there, and then I like to bring it down because I don't like it to be just one line under the eye, and I'll kind of fade it out, and then I will bring it up and out. I usually do this after I'm done with eye makeup. I'm actually not wearing any eye makeup right now, just so I can show you guys more what the concealer does. Let's move on to concealer number 3. Concealer number 3, this is what I call our salmon concealer. This has a little bit more of a pink undertone, which I'll show you here. You see that? This works as a great on the skin concealer for so many of our shades. Olive 1, Olive 2, Shinto 1, Shinto 2. Any of these colors can be used with this with concealer number 3 right on the skin to cover any breakouts, any kind of pigmentation. And I personally love it for under eyes for a lot of people, because if you think about it, under eyes tends to have more of a bluish purple color. So when you use something that's more of a pink salmon color, it helps to counteract it. So I use the tiniest little bit and it just knocks out those dark circles. So let's try a little bit of number 3, and you'll see the difference between what number 2 looks like as a highlighter for those skin tones. Again, Shinto 1, Shinto 2, Olive 1, Olive 2, maybe Olive 4. Olive 4 is getting a little darker. I would probably go with concealer 4 for that, but let's go with 3. And I'm just gonna lightly bring this, oh, I put a lot on. I'm just gonna lightly tap this color. I use the dry brush technique with this concealer, so that way it doesn't really crease up. Now, that is going to give me more, you know, I just got a little more tan yesterday. I can tell I'm probably even a number 4. But this is the number 3 concealer. So number 3 is going to give more of a natural coverage under the eye and not so much of a highlight pop. Number 2 is going to give a little bit more of a highlight pop. So I'm going to go ahead and go into number 4. Number 4 is a really good concealer. And let me swatch that for you. Number 4 is a really good concealer for our Shinto. 2 or Shinto 4s are, you can do it as a highlighter for MB5 colors. Olive 4 would also use a number 4 concealer if you just want to match the skin tone, or if you want to highlight for deeper skin tones. So let me give you an idea what number 4 looks like on my skin here, just so you can get an idea. I'm wearing Shinto 2. 4 is pretty close to Shinto 2, and that's why I mean that it works really nicely with those colors on the skin. So let's say I had some redness or something like that, I can easily put 4 concealer right over it. If I don't want this highlighted look under my eye, I could use the 4 as my under eye concealer, and it won't be too dark. It will just match my skin. It'll just bring down the redness, I'm sorry, the blue in my skin, and not highlight that area. Because sometimes people don't want to do a highlighter. Sometimes they just want to make it match the rest of their skin. So concealer 4 is good for that. I also like concealer 4 as a primer for myself because I don't necessarily want my eyes to pop. I like a very neutral color on my lids. So if I, especially like if I'm going for a number 19 shimmer powder shadow, that's like this brown rust kind of color, I use number 4 concealer on my eyelid because it's not gonna fight that color. It's not gonna make it brighter than I actually want it to. So you see how concealer number 4 is really good for blanking out the canvas without making it brighter. For skin tones like Shinto 2, like Olive 4. All right, so that's what concealer 4 looks like. So again, we've had concealer 2 here, which I actually brought down a little bit. Concealer 3 was right where I originally put this. Concealer 1 was where I was taking down the redness. Concealer 0 I have on my hand here. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're gonna talk about concealer 5 and concealer 6. Okay guys, so now we're on to concealer number 5. So let me go ahead and swatch this. Concealer number 5 is gonna be definitely more of a warm tone. This is going to be more of a matching tone for like a Shinto 4, and you can use it as a little bit of a highlighter for MB5 and MB6 colors. I feel like it might be a little bit too light for an MB8 color, and a lot of people tend, because this tends to be a darker color, a lot of people tend to use it as a contour color. I prefer not to use it as a contour color, and here's why. Contour is really meant to shape your face by mimicking a shadow under your cheekbone. So we're playing up the idea that our cheekbones are actually higher and therefore the sun is casting a shadow underneath here. Well, shadows aren't necessarily this color. Shadows are not normally warm or orange. So you don't want to necessarily use number 5 down here. It just looks like you're putting makeup down there. Yes, it does the job of sculpting the face, but it's not necessarily realistic. So number 5 I would normally use for skin tones that it actually matches, like Shinto 4, MB5 is a highlighter. And when I mean highlighter, it might be in this area. It might be down the T-zone of the eye. It could be great on the middle of the face for girls who are MB5, MB6. And that's what I use concealer number 5 for. Okay, and last but definitely not least is concealer number 6. So let's get a little scoop of concealer number 6 in here. Now this is gonna be our deepest color. Concealer number 6 is great for that MB8 color, but believe it or not, most people buy concealer number 6 because it is more neutral. You see how this was more that orangey undertone? This is definitely more neutral. So remember when I told you that we need a neutral color to contour with? I actually recommend, even for light skin tones, the concealer number 6 more than anything for contouring. You can put it on sure by itself if you wanted to. And let's do this over here. And you can put it right in this area, like that. Okay, so you're gonna do it more. Make sure it doesn't go down too low. And then you can take your blender full and blend that all the way in so that you have that contour. I actually don't have my blender full on me, so let me just use my foundation brush. So you can have that contour in this area and it's not gonna be as bright and as obvious as if you're using concealer number 5. and I'm talking to anybody for light to medium to tan skin tones. So that number 6 is going to be way more believable as a contour on your skin. But even if you feel like it's even a little bit too dark, you can do this first and then go over lightly with your foundation, or you can even mix it into your foundations. Now remember, any one of these colors is going to be amazing. You can highlight with this one, which is number 0. You can correct with number 1. You can highlight or match the skin tone with number 2. This is amazing for matching the skin tone or even covering dark under eye circles and using on the lid as a primer with number 3. Number 4 is great to help, again, match skin tones or highlight deeper skin tones, or even darken colors. Like maybe you got a foundation and you want to mix to darken it a little bit. Let's say you're Shinto 2 and you want to mix it with a little bit of this. That's great too. You can use this concealer number 5 to darken a Shinto 2, or to match a Shinto 4, or to highlight with any of the deeper colors. And then number 6 is going to be a great color for our deep skin tone girls that actually have like an MB8 kind of shade to them. This will help lighten that just a tiny bit and be able to make highlights pop for them. But also it's great as a contour color. So, and it's a great mixer for anybody in between any of these shades. But hopefully this breaks it down a little bit more for you. Okay, so I went ahead and done a little bit of concealing right here just with what I had on my hand. You see how that's all gone now? So I'm gonna break down what I did. I put some number 6 concealer right in here just for some contour. I actually mixed it with a little bit of 5. I am a little bit more tan and a little more yellow, so I can get away with mixing it a little more. And I know I told you guys not to do that, but if you do have some tan undertones, you can get away with a little more warmth than normal. I went ahead and put highlighter. Actually, it was just on my hand, so I just went ahead and mixed 0, 1, and 2 in the highlight areas of my face right here, and I just kind of put it up and out a little bit. Went straight down my nose, went on in this V here on the outer corners of my eyes. I touched a little bit right above my lip, so my lip looks a little bit lifted up, and I went ahead and went straight down my jawline. So it's more of this kind of shape to the face. I would normally take a blender full at this point, which I don't have. So I'm just going to take my little bit of my regular foundation, and I'm just going to work that foundation very lightly over what I did. And the only reason I'm doing it this way is I'm not trying to cover necessarily everything, but I do want to blur the lines of where any of these colors are. I don't want it to be too light in any areas. I don't want it to be too dark. So I am going to take a little bit of the shade that is my normal foundation shade. And you see I'm not like I'm not sitting here and putting more and more foundation on this brush. I'm just really using the brush to blend. All right, so that helps to bring it all together. I have my contour, my highlight. I have my under eye circles gone. I have primed my lids. They're ready for shadow. And so I can do another whole other video because my face is all primed. I even put number 6 down here and right on my chin line here. Oops, sounds funny when I'm talking with that. And just make sure that whatever you do, go ahead and bring it over to the ears. If you've made your face darker in any way, go ahead and don't forget your ears, because it looks a little off when you just concentrate on the face and then you forget about the ears. So there's my contoured look and my highlighted look and my, I like to keep it pretty natural. I don't like to keep it very sculpted. And this is very little pigment, guys. So when I'm literally just wisping the brush over the area. I am not smearing it on. I'm not blending it out to death. It's literally the tiniest bit will do. The color is very pigmented. You don't need to put too much on. The texture is super thick. So you just use the tiniest bit. This little square of concealer will last you a year. Okay, guys, hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions.